We are all looking for love. From the very beginning of my life, I seek my mother's love. I have no words for that, but it's an instinctive thing. I need my mother and my father later. I need her approval. I need her to see me, to see everything I do. Oh, look at this, or look at that. And as some time passes, my seeking love also includes, I want to give love. If I go to see my little granddaughter, she might pick something up from her mother's drawer by her bed, and she'll steal it out of the bed, and she possesses it, but then she'll run over to me and give it to me. She wants to give me something. That's a kind of, I don't know if you call it love, but in a way it's the beginnings of love, wanting to give. And then as soon as she's given it to me, she wants it back. So this to and fro is what preoccupies our life. And as we get older and start to become a person who looks around and recognizes the surrounding world, there continues to be a major fascination in my life, the constant search to receive love, and also the need to give. I want to give myself to someone, I want to give myself to something that I can believe in, that can give meaning to my life. And perhaps for most of us, in course of time, comes this experience of falling in love. When a person falls in love, their whole life becomes transformed. Everything's wonderful, because wherever I look, I see the image of my beloved, which brings light to my whole existence. And I want to share it with others. I want to tell everyone, I have met this wonderful person who brings light into my life. And I want to receive the love, and I also want to return it. What can I give to my beloved? How can I brighten up the life of my beloved? So for some time, this powerful experience of being in love, which I suppose is the subject of half the popular songs of the world, it lights up my life. But in this world of illusion, it has an end. And what was the light of my life, it can cast a great shadow when that love somehow it gets broken. And that can then, in some cases, that broken love can turn into a long, long period of darkness and recrimination and loss, the overall feeling of loss. And I suppose it's true to say that as one gets older, one's life fills more and more with these feelings of loss. Yet there is another kind of love, a sublime love. And when I find that love for the Supreme Beloved, again, that can lighten up my whole life. Not just my life, but it can lighten up the lives of those around me. I can reflect that love and that light all around me. My own love transforms not just me, but it can transform the world. Well, many years ago, I was fortunate to meet such a person whose love lit up the world around him. That's half a century ago, actually. I was a child, I was 20. And meeting my Gurudev transformed my whole life. And that transformation has remained. So there are some people who are fortunate in their lives. Some of us have this blessing of meeting someone who lights up my life. Or somehow or another it may be having a mystical experience, some profound, really deep mystical experience, an encounter, pretty much I suppose, an encounter with God in one form or another. An unforgettable experience which changes my whole life. That's the greatest blessing. So I wanted to share a story that casts light on this discovery of love. And so I'm going to read, I'm going to relate the story. The story is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, of which I have a copy here of, this is the very first volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam, translated by my Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, into the English language. And he worked on this book in the 1960s and the late 50s and the 1960s. Before he ever left India, before he came to the West, he translated this first canto in 3 volumes, and he brought them with him. And they bear these. I used to own the originals, but somehow they departed from me. But now I have a beautiful set of a facsimile edition of these 3 volumes. So in here, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, there is a wonderful story about someone who had a powerful experience that changed his life. And this someone is no ordinary person. This someone his name is Narada Muni, and he's praised throughout the world of the Hindu world as being one of the most popular divine beings who travels everywhere throughout space, and wherever he goes he carries his veena, his stringed instrument. Looks a bit like a sitar from a distance, but it's a much simpler version, and he sings the divine names of God. So he tells us this amazing story that in his previous life he was a child looked after by his mother, who was a serving woman, whose whole task in life was she looked after a pilgrim guest house, and pilgrims would come and stay for a few days and then continue on their journeys. And these were highly spiritually evolved beings who used to come and stay. And this little child would watch them and listen to them, what they were saying, and would sometimes get the chance to eat from their plates after they'd finished their meal. He would sometimes have some of that food, and the food taken from given by a highly evolved being, that food which has been blessed, doubly blessed, offered to Supreme Lord and then taken by a divine being. has tremendous potency. So this little child would eat this food and he would listen to the words. And then one day, tragically, his mother passed away. And this is beautifully told. Once upon in the Bhagavad Gita, as translated by my Gurudev in the 1960s. Once upon a time, the poor woman, my mother, while engaged in milching cow at night, was on the road bitten by a serpent, striking on the leg, as it was influenced by the supreme time. I took it as special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees. And thinking like that, I started for the northern side after that. So this tiny child sees his mother has died. Tragic. But with the wisdom that perhaps a child can have. And this particular child, of course, very wise child, did not see it as something, as a curse, something bad, saw it as a blessing of the Lord. So sometimes in life we experience what seems like calamities. But the higher vision is to see that everything is, as it is said here, influenced by the supreme time. There are great laws that govern our lives, which ultimately, these come from God. And there are no accidents. So the child is suddenly orphaned, and his reaction to that is to just wander off into the world. And the beautiful description is there that he began to pass through many flourishing metropolis, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, and natural forests, as well as nursery gardens. He passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of variegated minerals like gold, silver, and copper. Tracts of land with reservoirs of water full of beautiful lotus flowers deserving to be used by the denizens of heaven and decorated with bewildered drones by the singing birds upon them. So much beauty and variegatedness is in this world. And as I pass through the journey of life, I encounter so many things. Meanwhile, in my heart, all the time, what I'm really seeking is love. And also there are difficult things. So he continues his story. He says, I alone then passed through many forests full of pipe, bamboo, pens, sharp grass, weeds, caves, which are very difficult to go through alone. And still I visited those dangerously fearful forests, deep and dark, and the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals. Thus travelling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took bath in the lake of a river and drank water also. I got relief from my tiredness by such contact with water. After that, under the shadow of a banyan tree, in the forest, without any human habitation, I began to meditate upon the Supersoul situated within myself by my intelligence, as I had heard it from those liberated souls back at the guest house when he was a tiny child. He had heard their voices and heard their words. So in the journey of life, for all of us, there may come a moment where I pause and reflect on all I've seen, and I decide to go inwards and to seek the divine. So Narada tells us, as soon as I began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, with my mind transformed into transcendental love, tears rolled down from my eyes, and after that, the Lord, personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, appeared on the lotus of my heart. O Vyasadeva, he's telling the story to Vyas. At that time, being excessively overpowered by feelings of happiness, every part of my body became distinguished, being absorbed in the ocean of ecstasy. I could not see both myself and the Lord. The transcendental form of the Lord, as it is just apt to the mind by its desire, and is at once vanishing all disparity of the mind. Having not seen that form again, all of a sudden I got up, being perturbed in the mind, as it happens after losing the desirable. I desired to see again that transcendental form of the Lord, but in spite of my attempting to concentrate the mind upon the heart with eagerness of reviewing the form, I could not see any more, and thus, without being satisfied, I was like one very much aggrieved. So he had this wonderful experience, this visionary experience, and suddenly it was lost. But there, in the wilderness on his own, he then heard the divine words of the Blessed One, who said, O Narada, I regret very much that during this span of life you shall no more be able to see me. Those who are incomplete in service and is still immatured in being freed from all material dirts hardly can see me. O the virtuous, as you have once only seen my person, it is just for your increasing the hankerings for me. Because the more your hankerings for me, the more you be freed from all material desires. So he had this wonderful experience, was awakened to a higher reality filled with love and joy, seeing the divine. And it was taken from him. And he's only a child. So then Narada describes that he then spent the rest of that, this is his previous life, he spent the rest of that life in this way. He says, thus I began chanting the holy name and the fame of the Lord. By repeated recitation, and without any formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are all benedictory, and so doing I travelled all over the earth, fully satisfied and without being proud or envious. He had received this great blessing that right at the beginning of his life, he had a life-changing experience. But he'd been told that, you're not yet ready. Those who are incomplete in service and are still immature in being freed from all material dirts, he's told, hardly can see me. So he's not ready yet to fully see the Lord at all moments. But he's been given this amazing experience to increase, the Lord says, his hankerings. So he says, he spent the rest of his life then chanting the holy name by constant repetition and recitation of the glories of the Lord, and such chanting and remembering of the pastimes of the Lord are all benedictory. And so doing, I travelled all over the world, fully satisfied and without being proud or envious, once I have discovered this divine love. Even if it's only a fleeting moment, it changes my whole life. I no longer want anything from this material world. I have seen the true destination, the true purpose, the true meaning of life. So in my case, I was very lucky that when I was more or less a child, I was 20 years old, I met my Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada. And even though I wouldn't claim at all to possess those qualities that he showed, but I know that they exist. I have met someone who truly had that universal love and was able to give it to all who came into his company. So either, some of us are blessed to have some very, very profound, special experience, maybe in my earlier life. At some point in my life, I had a profound experience of God, or I met somebody who was completely in love with the divine, and that person touched my heart and changed me. So some of us are blessed to have such an experience. I'm guessing maybe more than one would think have had such an experience and may not speak about it. But if I'm seeking that experience and I've not had it, then let me find those who have had it. Because being with them, their lives have been touched. Being with them, my life can also be touched. And so, in this way, life can be transformed. And Narada, he goes on to say that in due course of time, he being fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and therefore having no material attachment, been completely freed from all material dirts, that's the word Prabhupada used, impurities in my heart. He said, I met with death exactly like lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. So for one who is in love with God, when the moment of death comes, death strikes like lightning, but simultaneously comes illumination. There is no need for fear. None of us need fear the end of life. There is only love and light that awaits us. And once I find that love, that divine love, all my other needs are fulfilled. I seek nothing else. Let me just constantly remember what I've discovered. And so in the case of Narada, that constant remembrance, he says he was calling upon the name of the Lord. So my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he taught me a practice. He taught all his followers the practice of what we call japa, the sacred beads, that by reciting the divine name of the Lord, I can call to remembrance all that I have been blessed to experience, and I continue to remember the Supreme Lord every day. And he also left these wonderful books. I've been giving you a sample of this particular publication. He did this in India before leaving for the West. He made these books in the old-fashioned letterpress style, but he included the Sanskrit. And his English, Prabhupada was expert at English. He had wonderful vocabulary. But the grammar in places, there's a mistake or a misprint. I love that, actually. I love the imperfection, perfect imperfection. But later those were transformed when he came to the West into properly edited and nicely printed books, and many books that this Bhagavatam was completed roughly in 50 volumes. So by taking advantage of those books, I can again, even just a page, it doesn't need constant reading, just a page or two, I can remind myself. And by meeting with others who have discovered this divine experience, we can share amongst ourselves, and in that way keep the memory alive and allow it to grow in the present moment, because each one of us is not alone. We have in our heart the divine presence, and we can all access that at any time. And the easy way is by remembering the name, the divine names of God, and by hearing from one another about Krishna. So, if you can find such blessing, look for those who have found it, and in their company, keep it alive and let it grow and spread light. And then in my life, whatever comes, my mother may be bitten by a snake and die, or some other tragedy will come. By definition, it's the nature of this world. But I will see within it always the overarching, divine, loving presence of God, of Krishna. And so my whole life becomes illuminated. And as happened with Narada, when death comes like lightning. Simultaneously, death strikes and illumination. So thank you for your company. And I'm posting next to this talk a wonderful day we had yesterday here in Glastonbury in what we call St Benedict's Church, which is actually a 1,000-year-old church, pretty much, dedicated originally to a local saint called St Benedict, who inspired many. And in that church we had a day of kirtan, and a lovely gathering of about 70 or 80 people. And I was very fortunate. I was asked to speak a few words and to sing. And so I'm posting a recording or a couple of clips of recordings of that wonderful occasion which occurred here in Glastonbury yesterday. Today is the 25th, I think, yesterday was the 25th of January, 2025. So many blessings to you, my listeners, and I hope to meet you in the ether again soon. Blessings. Hare Krishna. I should just add that the sound effects that accompanied that talk is rain on the roof of my this simple little cottage in my garden where I practice my spiritual hearing and chanting. And I suppose in a way, no accident. We are experiencing a storm here in Glastonbury in January. Lots of wind and rain, and the downpour of water from the heavens is a blessing, actually, because it's what feeds the earth, feeds all of us, and so that's symbolic of the ever pouring blessings that we receive all the time.